If you struggle with articulating how your company is different, or if you find yourself in a year-end marketing or strategy retreat and you sit down with a whiteboard and you think about strategy and you, as a team, debate how do we actually talk about ourselves in a way that's unique or in a way that sets us apart or distinguishes us to customers or people might want to work here. If you struggle with that, I think this tool will be helpful to you. And the idea is positioning. It's a framework. It's an area of practice within strategy or around brand. I don't know exactly where an academic would put it in a slot, but I think it's a very helpful concept and a fun concept to use with your own business, your own organization, or to even think about competitors, maybe how they're using positioning to set themselves apart. So I'm going to walk through some different slides here to hopefully give you a cool look at how positioning works and how you can really use this. And I see clients' eyes light up when they start going through this exercise because the light bulb goes off and they say, I can get creative here. I kind of know where I am, but this helps me to talk about who I am and how I'm different. Okay. So let's first look at a question, which will help us zone in on the idea of positioning. So if you ask a group of people who has the best burger, or if you ask a group of people who has the best pizza in the world, or who has the best coffee in the world, you'll get a bunch of different answers. You'll get, if you have 10 people in a room, you'll get 10 different people telling you who has the best burger. I like this burger. I like that burger. I only would eat this burger. I wouldn't eat that one. So, but the challenge of that is that the best really lies in the eyes of the beholder, or in this case, who has the taste buds. They tell you who is best, and it depends who that person is. That would guide you toward the answer of who's the best. So you can't really as a blanket be a brand and say we're the best. Okay, it's the wrong question to be asking who has the best. You have to layer on top of that who the person is, and almost think about them in categories because different customers like different things. Here's 3 different people, just different simulations of how someone might define best when it comes to hamburgers. So the first person values speed, and we'll call this the quick bite. They want a burger. They want it now. They want it maybe even in a drive-through window. They don't need some artisan burger with different blends of ground beef. That's not for them. It's cheap and to the point. The second person, and by the way, there could be 20 of these we could come up with, but we're just drawing some different examples here. They value the experience, the ambiance around the burger. So we'll call this the night out. This person is willing to wait. They kind of like it to be slow and crafted because they're soaking it all in. It's about the music. It's about the lighting. It's about the vibe of the place. And so the burger is not just the burger itself. It's the things around the burger. Then you might create a third one who looks at the best as something else, the vegetarian. My wife loves black bean burgers. She would choose that all day long over a medium rare burger from, a pub. So sometimes people don't eat meat at all. They're trying to cut down on red meat. So to them, the burger is about something else. Their version of the best is not really a burger at all. So as I set that up, I want to emphasize why I think you should care about positioning. And the idea is that you can't please everyone. I think all of you listening would probably agree to that. That's not a newfound statement. What you do can't please all the people that have these different definitions of what the best is. And you're dealing with customers who have overwhelmed minds already. And if you try and please them all, what you'll end up with is an offering that's in the middle, and the middle is not where anything interesting happens. It's actually a pretty lame place to be as an organization or as a product. So the first charge here is to give up the idea of pleasing everyone, even though we all sort of try and do that. When you want to pick a lane strategically or with positioning, you kind of inherently know, well, that's not going to make that person happy. If I want to do it fast and cheap, The person who wants the artisan burger is not going to like me. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with knowing that what you do is not going to necessarily alienate people, but it might not be as attractive to them. Still might eat your burger though, but it just might not be their burger of choice. So if you're struggling with these, explaining what you do in one clear sentence, again, if you're in a room and how do we avoid sounding just like everyone else, or if you feel like you're getting compared on price time and time again, that's what it all comes down to for the customer, then it may be that you don't have a marketing strategy problem or a media buying strategy problem or creative or design. It might not be your logo. It might just be positioning. So let's break into talking about actually what positioning is, because it's used in different contexts, I think, improperly. It's not brand positioning, by the way. It's not strategic positioning. It's just positioning is the term that has been coined. So I would like to just talk about 3 different definitions that I think could shed some light on what it means. These are all highly respected voices in this field. Ries and Trout, they really wrote the book on this back in the 80s. In the 80s, think about this, well before Google, well before Instagram, well before YouTube and multi-screens, probably only 3 channels on television, maybe 4 if you had public television. They argued at that time that the customer's mind was overwhelmed with messaging so much that marketers needed a new way to connect with them. And so their whole idea was, and it still stands today, how do we carve out not just a product in their head, but we want to own the lane inside their mind. We want them to think about us when they think about this particular lane. So Volvo, for example, owns the safety lane. Whether or not they truly own it, we don't know, but they own that in most of our minds. If I ask 10 people what the safest car is, I'll say Volvo, because they've done a great job at building that over time. Seth Godin, decades later, builds on top of that and really says positioning is a way to give a busy brain, because our brains are certainly busy, a shortcut. So he says a hook. If you have hooks in a house and you're hanging jackets and coats, which hook does the customer place you on? Where do they file you away mentally? They give an example here. Duke is the Yale of the South, is one he calls out. So I don't know that Duke would be thrilled with that, or Yale, but it's an association. You know how that works when someone says that we're the Harvard of the South or the Harvard of the West. What they're really trying to do is borrow an association to help someone get it. Oh, I get it. I remember when Airbnb came out and they talked about how they were the Uber of hotels. So we all thought to ourselves, oh, we get that now. We understand the hook. April Dunford wrote a great book in 2019 called Obviously Awesome. I highly recommend this one too. She talks about context setting in the marketplace, helping to set the context, choose what you're compared to, and that will help a customer to understand who you are. So if you think about a $12 burger, that's really pricey if you go to McDonald's, but if you go to a bistro, that's actually a pretty good deal. So that's what she espouses as far as how to define. But the idea here is, if we hone in on what it means, it helps us to get to a point where we can actually use it. Okay, even though you won't necessarily use these definitions day to day, but it helps you to hone in on what it actually means, so you can put it to work for you. Okay, so the tool, kind of the secret here, is this axis, this XY axis, where and spoiler alert, you get to pick which axes that you actually use. But the positioning, a way to articulate it to yourselves, or to yourself, so you can articulate it to your customers, is to pick the 2 axes and then figure out which spot you want to own along these axes. So you pick a bunch of attributes that matter to a customer, and for your products. If we go to coffee, things that matter to customers: the taste, the variety, the temperature, the cup, the sleeve, the technology. What kind of app do we have? What options do we have as far as flavors, the calorie content? What does the cup say as a brand expression as I carry it around? All those things matter, and we could come up with 150 attributes relative to coffee, fair trade, organic. I mean, the list goes on and on. So if you list all those attributes in your mind, you want to be thinking about who's going after which attributes, and then how could they be placed along an axis to help one company to stand out while others don't. So as we get into some examples, this will become more clear. But the idea is, think about what matters to customers. You can't check every single box, right, with your offering, but you can pick two, and pick two that aren't being looked at or aren't being pursued, and then you can ultimately deposition others who aren't paying attention to those two. So ultimately, choosing the axes becomes the strategy or the way that you go about finding your place in a way that would help you articulate who you are. And so when you change the axes, the whole map itself changes, and where people are along the competitive continuum changes. So one quick example in the hotel space. We're going to look at hotels through the axes of budget and upscale, so basically price, and then is it standardized across the country or across a geography, or is it unique in a local space? So if you think about Hampton Inn on the lower left here, it's a budget hotel and it's fairly standard. You know what you're going to get when you go to a Hampton Inn. It's going to look pretty much the same name tag, same attire, same physical structure, same architecture. And for that person who wants that, that's what Hampton Inn offers. Same with Holiday Inn Express. Courtyard, same way, maybe a little bit more upscale. But a hotel group like Kimpton, and Marriott has offerings in this, the Marriott Tribute Portfolio, the Autograph Collection, or Marriott Series, they have local offerings too, where you feel like you're in a unique place. You feel like you're in a different place. You're having, maybe you don't want to stay at the Hampton Inn every single night. You've been in 20 Hampton Inns if you're a business traveler in the last 20 weeks. And so you want something different. So the Kimpton collection really carves out that local space. They're not trying to win on cheap in the same box every place you go. What they're trying to do is offer you something different. So the person like you, the person that they're looking to please, is the every other week business traveler. They're sick of the same lobby in every city, wants a place that feels like where he or she actually is, and will spend a few more dollars for it. So that's just one example. Now, if you were to change the elements along these axes, then you completely flip this chart, and you'll notice here that Kimpton is depositioning every other competitor on this list, and they're the only one who occupies that lane. Now the question becomes too, you got to make sure there are enough of those people that fit that category to support a Kimpton. So if there's a city of 4 hotels, small town, you better be sure there's enough traffic to support that particular property. And this is, by the way, hypothetical. So what I want to do, and this is the fun part, is let's walk through a couple of different industries live, and I'll show you how this works. And by the way, I'm using Claude here. AI is a great way to explore this and to see dynamically how you might find your own position. You could work with your competitive set in here. It's also just fun to just look at a different industry that you're curious about, just to see how it works. So we talked about the burger, so I did these pretty quickly. But if we were to look at value, and the two dimensions were price and speed when it comes to a hamburger, you've got pricey, right? And you've got cheap, and then you've got sit down, and you've got instant. So along those two continuums, you can look and see. So let's go all the way over here to McDonald's. McDonald's, we all know McDonald's, right? We know exactly what we're going to get wherever we go. They're everywhere. If you go get a burger from McDonald's, they're great about consistency. They're very affordable, and they've got great technology. They've got an incredible app, and they're not trying to be artisan, right? So they really win when it comes to inexpensive and getting it fast. Okay, so for the person who wants that, they're positioned for that person. Okay, if I go over here to Five Guys, okay, Five Guys, great burgers, by the way, a little bit more expensive, right? If not a lot more expensive, and not as fast. I haven't seen a Five Guys with a drive-through. Maybe they exist. I've not seen one, but they like the feel of Five Guys. They're known for just giving you fries that go well beyond what fits in a regular carton. They don't freeze their food. There's peanuts while you wait. The menu is very, very compact, not a lot of options, and you're going to pay a little bit more, but people like the idea of it. If you look at your local pub, we've got a local Irish bar, been there a lot over the years, and they've got a great burger, incredible burger. It's not going to be inexpensive. It's not going to be super expensive, like not a steakhouse burger. But if you go to your local pub, it's going to be more of the ambiance. They're going to have maybe a craft beer selection. They're going to have beer in general, which you're not going to get at McDonald's. And it's just a different kind of experience. And it's also local and it's authentic. So you feel like you're in a place that you couldn't get anywhere else. And then if I look at a gastropub, we have one called the Ravenous Pig. This is going to be a fantastic burger. So you're talking about a chef back there who's got maybe some inventive toppings. The blend of meats, cheese are going to be really unique. Great beer list. It's going to be an elevated experience, probably as far as a dining room, and you're going to say that was really worth the price. So that's just an example of how the burger dimension might work along cost, and then also how quick. Now, if you change the game and you do price and craft, so watch how this moves, and this is where the interactivity of it can be really helpful to you. We're now looking at price still, but then we're also looking to kind of the dimension of being chef driven versus a commodity. And here the gastropub really wins. Shake Shack is slightly below, Five Guys the same, and then same with local pub. So there's no real chef when it comes to Whataburger, Wendy's, Burger King, or McDonald's, but you can see how the gastropub can win on the idea that the craft burger becomes the event, becomes the occasion, and McDonald's just can't possibly reproduce that, right? So, and then you can look at open lanes. So open lanes here would be where are the places where you could win if you were to enter the market. The gastropub wins here because it's a night out and then also one of a kind, and they have a bit of an elevated experience. So the gastropub wins. And down here, McDonald's, they're not trying to win on this basis, but they're essentially depositioned. Even though they have a lot of great things to offer, this is what the gastropub can bring to the marketplace. So another one to look at, and I have a lot of fun with, probably this is the one I probably use most with clients when we're talking, is the cruise industry. So if you think about cruise ships, cruise lines all roughly have the same thing, which is they have boats that float on the water, and they house people, and they serve food and drinks. And so if you were to look at basically all cruise lines, they all do those things the same. Now, they all approach it a little bit differently. And if you've watched ads for cruise lines, you can sort of deconstruct what their positioning approach is. So if I just look at the price ladder and I think about price and ship size as my dimensions in the XY axes, I immediately go to Carnival, right? Carnival is probably more of a budget option, and it's a mega ship, and it's also known to be the party ship. So Carnival provides a great experience. They're going to be accessible when it comes to price. They're going to have casinos on board. They're going to have kids. They're going to have couples. They're going to have family reunions. It's going to be a party. And there's going to be a lot going on. You go on YouTube, you go on Instagram, they'll just show you what happens on a Carnival ship. It can be pretty wild. But for the person that likes that and that's what they want, that's going to be fantastic, right? That's going to be the best cruise line for them. If I go to Disney's going to be all about family, right? The parents are going to probably have options for food and drink, certainly, but this is going to be more tailored for the family. And then if you go over here to Viking positions itself more as the thinking person's cruise. They're going to have a smaller ship. It's going to be more intimate. It's going to be more luxurious than probably a Carnival ship would be. And whereas you have a bunch of kids and casinos on a Carnival ship or a Royal Caribbean ship, you're not going to have that on Viking. In fact, in their ads, they're like, no kids, no casinos. Like they really are out in front saying, we don't do that. And then if you think about a different way to look at these dimensions, you can see how Viking, as we just talked about, doesn't take guests under 18. They don't have casinos, no water slides. It's going to be calm. There are going to be probably lecturers on board, and for the person who likes that, they're going to win on sort of the luxury component and the idea that they're showing the world or presenting the world to you. It's not just about the Bahamas, but it's going to be about places where you're going to be enriched. And then you can look here when it comes to open lanes of audience and vibe. Virgin Voyages is sort of a different approach to the adults cruise. So they're not going to be necessarily about lectures on the high seas, but they also aren't going to have kids on board. So if you want more of an adult experience, it's going to be more of a boutique hotel aesthetic, and then tattoo studios, wellness, are a part of the experience. Also, I think about this probably more of like a South Beach vibe, a nightclub vibe than it is a family getaway. So these are just two examples of how two industries can look at different axes. And if I were a cruise line, or was going to start a cruise line, which I am not, but if I were going to start a cruise line, you could look here at open lanes and think about what doesn't exist that we might create to deposition these others. And so as you look around and you explore these different axes, and you could go on and on with the permutations here, you figure out pretty quickly that there are lanes that you can occupy and win at. Or if you're a small college and you're looking to differentiate, you could see how applying different lanes here or different axes could help you pick a place. Or maybe you're already occupying a place, but it's never really come out at you visually. This can really help you do it. So I'd encourage you to go in. You can generate the same kind of maps, apply it to your own situation, and make headway there. So how do you put this to work? I'll just sort of recap. You want to list what your buyers want. Think about the dimensions that they really care about. And there's going to be a big list, and you want to whittle that down to 7 and whittle that down to 2. And you can play with different simulations of this before you choose one. Pick 2 that matter. Then you plot everyone that you compete with, and competitive forces you can also put on here. And that will help you to pick a lane that other people don't occupy. And that's one that you could certainly own. So when you find that empty quadrant, that's the one that you can claim. So you go there and own it. And that takes courage, because the temptation is, I want to own all these. And when you try and own all these, you don't do all of them well. Nobody does. So the payoff here is that once you have a position, you've established one, you've made a decision, because there's not one right answer here. The right answer is to actually make a decision and to plot your point. When you do that, you will find that these other dimensions come a lot easier to you. When your strategic retreat, when you're doing strategic planning, this becomes a fundamental, foundational cornerstone, because you can go back to this and you can be in a good place to know what might drive your strategy. How might you plan your marketing? How might you take your brand to the next level, because you now know what your brand is trying to say. And so certainly your messaging and campaigns follow suit. You're not twiddling your thumbs thinking about how are we different and what are we going to say, and are we really being honest with ourselves, and we put that out there. All those things quickly dissipate, and and I don't want to oversell this as making it sound like it's easy. You'll just start to see a fit once you choose. So when your axes are clear, everything downstream becomes easier. Price stops being the conversation. The right customers tend to find you. Your team can be more aligned because your team now knows what everybody's after. And now you're sort of reducing the pressure of trying to please everyone and trying to tap dance to everyone when they ask for something different. And so if you're worried, well, I'm going to lose everyone else if I pick a lane, I just want to remind you that focusing on one particular segment doesn't close the door necessarily on the others. It just decides where you're aiming. So it dictates, once you pick a positioning, it dictates who you're pursuing, even though others still might pursue you that don't reflect that target. So a couple in their 70s still books the Disney cruise because they went on Viking twice last year and they went on Regent, but they want to hang with their grandkids, and their grandkids are going on a Disney cruise. So you can still book the 70-year-olds on the Disney cruise, even though that's not what we're probably going to show in the ads if we're Disney. And then a foodie will still grab McDonald's on a road trip or pick your sort of fast food. And maybe some foodies wouldn't, but you get the point. You focus your message in the center, and then those that are on the edges will still be welcome. So it shouldn't be fear that you're going to lose everybody. It's just you're going to be stronger for the person that you choose. So back to the burger, just encourage you to think about being someone's best. Choose your someone, choose your axes. And then once you do that, you become unmistakable to that particular person. And the more you go, the stronger that position gets. The more people know. It's what's happened to Volvo. Volvo is safety. Disney is family magic. The list goes on. But the more you do this, and for the longer you do it, the stronger that position becomes. And the more those people find you, then the more the flywheel works, because those that they know, birds of a feather, bring those others along with them. So I hope this has been helpful to understand positioning. I use it a lot. It's fun to do. You'll have a bunch of light bulb moments. And when you do, please reach out. I'd love to hear about them.